Namaste. So if you follow, well, first of all, did anybody see the banner?
No.
Jesus. All right.
It wasn't too hurry to get in. Where was it?
It's on the fence. On the street.
Oh, yeah.
You saw that one?
Out there, I was looking.
Oh, no, I don't have one in here. I was hanging from the fence this morning with my tie wraps and so until Friday, if you follow the meetup group, you know that until Friday, I was not intending to talk about All Saints Day. Instead, I was delighted to have discovered that the assigned gospel for today was Zacchaeus. And it gave me an opportunity to talk about Jesus loving the little people. But, and I couldn't pass it up. But then, when Friday came, I just felt compelled to do All Saints and All Souls, which is technically November 1st, November 2nd. And maybe one of the reasons was that whole Halloween thing, which seems to have died down, the anti-Halloween thing. I don't hear as much about that.
Yeah.
But you know how
Satan's Day.
yeah, it's Satan's Day if you're an ignorant fundamentalist or evangelical who doesn't understand the history of the day and realize that the day sprung out of All Hallows Eve, which was the night before All Saints Day. So, but even though you don't hear that, I think it's interesting to kind of follow, or at least recognize that things get twisted and forgotten when we forget where they came from. And that's true of so many things in life. And it's true of saints. Because it was interesting that the Surya Das reading, actually the process he describes in terms of Buddhist saints being recognized locally and sort of acknowledged as saints by popular acclaim, was the process in the church until 1234. The official canonization process didn't start until 1234, which if you want to know how to remember that, it's quite easy. It's a very orderly process, and so is 1, 2, 3, 4. Not that I think you're ever going to be asked that, even on Jeopardy, but it's worth knowing. And then in 1234, when the church started officially recognizing saints, the ones that were pre-existing saints kind of got grandfathered in. And as happens, it's a very human process. It happens all the time. I mean, social workers get grandfathered in. People get... Miriam's heating herself.
I know. I was like, what is she? And then I realized what she was doing. Your hands.
And then later, when people forgot about the grandfathering in, some people got really upset because, well, some of the people who were traditional saints by popular acclaim, it turns out maybe didn't even really live, but they were what I want to call metaphorical saints. Saints who represented a certain need that people had, and so they identified somebody and made that person the object through which their needs could be met. I don't really see the problem with that. Unless you want to take what is essentially a mystical and metaphorical process and turn it into a science experiment. And that has happened in the official recognition of saints in the Christian tradition. Because to be recognized as a saint, there's this popular expectation that you have to be perfect. And that if you didn't pop out of the womb perfect, preferably with rosary beads in your hand. Now, how you got them, I don't know. But and briskly, working your rosary, then you couldn't possibly be a saint. And so some of the most saintly people that I can think of in history will never make the cut. Some of them, because there's this belief that if we disinter your remains, your flesh ought to remain uncorrupt. And yet, we now know that the only reason that would happen is because you had a particularly good and airtight seal on your casket in your vault. And one of the reasons it might not happen is they sometimes made some mistakes. And so was it Thomas à Kempis or Thomas à Becket who was buried alive? And they wanted to canonize him, and they dug him up, and he had clawed away the skin from his face because he lost his mind when he regained consciousness and realized what had happened. And so he can't possibly be a saint. And so I think for today we need to maybe redefine all that a little bit and let go of this notion of perfection. And so I present to you this candle. I'll be safe. A certain group did a fundraiser with Yankee candles. And a box of Yankee candles came to my house, and not very well packaged. Apparently whoever packed it didn't realize that if you put things that are glass, where I put that jar candle in a box, and then you don't fill the box up to the top with paper or bubbles or something, they didn't realize that the jars would break. And so one of them was broken. This thing was a Goodwill acquisition of mine, 50 cents, some time ago, just to use as the occasional something to stick a candle in. And this was in the jar. And so you might notice there's dings where I took my knife, because I will never pass up an opportunity to risk cutting myself, and broke pieces of the jar away. And then it finally got to the point where it's pretty thick down by the bottom of those jars. And so Wednesday night at meditation, I was sitting here with Jim, and I just dropped it on the floor. And the rest of the glass broke, and I could take it apart. And then what started me on the task was I knew I had this thing, and I knew that was probably about the right size. It's a saint. And here's why. Life will break you. Life will crack you. Life will even put little dings in your side and other places. But those who hold to a tradition of saints will tell you that one view is that the reason that we are alive is to become saints. It's the purpose of human existence, to become saints. Well, unless you happen to arrive in the delivery room with your rosary, we're not born perfect. And I want to say that if our purpose is to be a saint, then our purpose, President Clinton.
Oh, God. You're to the left.
That's right. Our purpose is to let our flame show. Now, if we say that when we get cracked by life or broken by life, that we're no good for our purpose anymore, then what I should have done was just thrown the jar away. But there's nothing about the jar cracking that makes the wick disappear. There's nothing about those struggles in life that take away the reality that we are God-bearers. that we carry within us, if you will, the very DNA of God. And just because the shell gets dinged up, and just because we aren't perfect, doesn't mean that the light isn't still there. And I think, and I really believe, one of the things we need to do today is do away with all of this expectation of perfection. And even recognize that perfection is not attainable. And what matters is that the light keeps burning. And that's the measure of sanctity. Not whether we realize that the ramp from, say, 45 to 94 is closed, and have to drive through the city of Wauwatosa trying to figure out where the heck there's an open ramp. But recognize that it's in that experience of searching for the open ramp that we get stronger. It's in that exploration that happens when we lose our way that we actually grow and develop the skills necessary to not lose our way the next time. And so I would like to say that there are people in all of our lives who had this flame for us when we couldn't find it ourselves. There are people in all of our lives who, when some people let us down, or even worse, when some people hurt us, were there to be the light that showed us that there was a way out. No matter how badly we were mistreated. If we're here today, it's because somebody kept, if you will, I don't want to sound cheesy, but kept the fire burning. And was a place of refuge for us, a place that allowed us to believe that it would be okay tomorrow or someday in the future. And I cannot think of a better definition of sainthood than that. Amen.